We created Free because someone had to stand for the addicts and loved ones of addicts who were suffering in silence, for the spiritual refugees who didn't have a place of belonging. A traditional church model doesn't create space for the conversations we know have to be had. Free is standing with those who are barely hanging on, who are longing for something new. Free is bridging the gap between spirituality and recovery. In this place, God meets us exactly where we are. This is what we stand for.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Hey, welcome to Free Recovery Community. We're a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. We meet together every Saturday night to explore spirituality together, especially how that relates to our recovery or our loved ones' recovery. I want to make a special shout out to those joining us online tonight. I think I'm over here. This week I had the opportunity to pop into the LSSI Treatment Center and visit with some of the folks there. And they love being able to tune in to Free every Saturday night. So to the people at LSSI, we have a room of people waiting for you when you get out of treatment to welcome you in. So yeah.
So here at Free Recovery, there is one thing we don't do, and every week we like to say that, and that is shame. Count of three, if we can all say we don't do shame. 1, 2, 3. We don't do shame. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
A couple of things going on. First of all, the Connect card. So if you're new with us, if it's your first time visiting, we'd love a chance to welcome you. You can fill out a Connect card right over there on that table. Matt will be over there after service, and we'll be happy to give you a free coffee mug to thank you for filling it out. If you want to meet for coffee or chat a little bit further, maybe you're curious about what Free is, then put your phone number in the comments, and I'd be happy to do coffee with you. If you want to do coffee anyways, and you already filled one out, just put your phone number on and say, I want to do coffee. One thing I forgot to mention in the opening, which I will mention now, is Free is not a 12-step program. We assume that most people work their own recovery. We're where you come when you want to grow and build together. And because of that, we don't do all the traditions and stuff like that. So you might see Christian here tonight taking some pictures. If you don't want to be in the pictures, just let Christian know. Like, we will still respect anonymity, but that is one thing that will look a little different. So,
I believe next we have volunteering, or that was the one before. There we go.
Yeah.
So it takes a community to help set up chairs, to help do hospitality, to help set up the merch table and the Pink Connect table every week. So we would love, if anyone is interested in volunteering, to please come see either Seth or myself at the end. We have about 2 groups that we do every other week, so it's not too much of a commitment, but it really does help us out, and it's a great way to be a part of the community. A lot of times we get here early and we hang out for like 30 minutes or so, so it's a great way to get involved.
Yeah, and we currently have some needs around supporting social media and AV too. So Ed has organized our bowling team. So we're going to do a bowling team for the Chicago Roundup, which is a queer-centered recovery conference that happens every year. You can scan this QR code to sign up for the team. I think it's a $25 suggested donation. 6 people can do it. But if we fill up the 6 people and there's still a few weeks to go, we can always add a second team. So we can always do that if we have more than 6 people that want to participate. But talk to Ed if you have any questions.
So not what we expected. So this is going to be the new series we have coming up after does this start today?
It starts today.
That's amazing. So yeah, it started going through April 4th.
It's not what he expected, right?
Yeah, not what I expected. So, but yeah, no, this is going to be the new speaker series we have going on for messages. And so we're really, really excited for that, to see what Seth has to say.
Ooh. And let's see. Is that it? So now, so here's kind of the flow of the evening for anyone who might be joining us for the first time. In just a few seconds, we're going to do celebrations. So Matt will walk around with a microphone, and we can hear what's going on good in people's lives or things that we can celebrate together as a community. After that, there will be a short 10 or 15 minute message on a recovery-related topic. And then we'll slow down for a second for the length of a song for some contemplation and meditation. Christian chose the song today, so if you don't like it, it's not my fault. Just kidding. Getting some variety, because I imagine you don't want to listen to Brandy Carlisle every week. Followed by that, we have a special guest storyteller tonight, and tonight we have Aaliyah sharing her story. I had a chance to chat with Aaliyah yesterday. We did coffee, and I think she has some good stuff to say. And then we'll close out with some celebrations where we will reflect on those things that are just maybe a little too heavy to carry, those challenges that we're encountering throughout the week. So with that, Matt will take it away with some.
Hello, my name is Al. I made 17 months yesterday.
Woo!
Hi, I'm Pete. I'm an alcoholic, and yesterday was my 1,000th day in recovery, going back to 2023.
Hi, I'm Aaliyah. I just want to celebrate the beautiful weather we're having because the winter was a struggle for me, and I have a lot of dark moments in the wintertime, and this is one of the early days that we get a little warm, so I feel really good today, and I'm very happy, so yeah.
So I found out Wednesday that I didn't have to do my associate's degree, that I could just jump straight into my career for my bachelor's, so that's when we'll be starting.
I have a celebration, but I have a mic on, so you don't have to bring it to me. Whenever I was 6 months sober, my best friend and cousin got married, and they had the talk with me. Has anyone ever had the talk with someone where it's like, Seth, don't make a fool of yourself at the wedding? And then, 3 weeks ago, they had a baby, and they begged me to come see them and their baby. So just the transition in the past almost 8 years of don't make an ass of yourself at the wedding to please come hold my baby is, I think, something to celebrate. Yeah.
Little wins. I bought my entire family tickets to the Magic Lounge last weekend. It's kind of yesterday, excuse me. And it's kind of a tradition where each kid in the family does the big event for the year, and this year was mine. And even though I relapsed 2 weeks ago, I was still able to put it on successfully, and it ended up being a great time. And one of the best nights we had.
So I've been talking about it the past few times, but I had my court hearing with the Secretary of State for my driver's license reinstatement, and my attorney said he's 95% sure that I will get a driver's permit within the next 30 to 90 days. So that's a huge accomplishment. I'm super happy about it.
Hello, my name is Ash, and next week I start a new job.
Oh, hey.
My name is Don, and I had my final for massage therapy yesterday, and I got a 98.
We'll be hitting you up, Don.
I feel like you just started that. One section. Oh, one section. Okay.
I'm Joe. In 2 weeks, I'm going to be presenting at this national conference in Chicago. It's called the Biomedical HIV Conference, and it's a huge honor to be presenting. And we have it all done, like the PowerPoint and the stuff for it. So I'm really excited about that.
My name's Matt. I went on my first Hinge date, and it went really well, and now we have a second date.
Oh, hey! Okay, any more celebrations before we wrap up? Last call. Awesome, thank you very much, Matt, for taking care of celebrations for us. So, you know, whenever you probably are getting tired of the, what's up? No celebrations this week. Yeah, we're just getting started on doing celebrations online, and so you can still submit them online. This week it didn't look like there were any of those because we're still getting kind of used to using them. So y'all are probably getting tired of hearing whenever I first got sober stories, but I think whenever I first got sober gives a good frame to what happens a little bit down the road, right? So whenever I was newly sober, I had just gotten out of prison, and my mom didn't feel comfortable with me staying in the house with her, really. And so she had this like converted sunroom, and it had like heat and electric, so I wasn't like freezing. And I'd moved all my stuff from before I got sober in there, right? So I had like a 4-poster bed that some guy had given me that probably was acquired in some shady way, and like just all kinds of stuff that were like relics of my using days. And I had this friend over. And he had probably 4 or 5 years under him. And he was like, oh yeah, in 5 years you won't have any of this stuff. But I was like, my precious things, I couldn't see it. And then like a few weeks later, my sponsor told me to do this thing. And I don't know if anyone's sponsors have had them do this, where he said, write down everything you want in life. Okay, so I wrote down what I wanted. It was like, he goes, what are your wildest dreams? And I was like, you know, I'd been a CPA before, I'd been, had a career and all this stuff. So at the time, I wasn't really in a place to dream that big. I was working at the call center, and every week I had to make the decision between some weeks, depending on how many timeshares I sold that week. I had to make the decision often between paying my electric bill or getting food. So oftentimes that kind of boiled down to me paying my electric bill and then waiting for 3 hours at the food bank to get food, and then spending the week deciding how in the world I was going to make meals out of like a whole frozen chicken, some lima beans, and maybe a can of pumpkin, right? Has anyone ever lived that food center life, right? And so whenever I was thinking about my wildest dreams, whenever I was newly sober, I was thinking maybe I could get back to about 6 figures, maybe I could have a nice safe place to live, and maybe I could have a career that I was okay with. And that was kind of the wildest dreams I had, because in reality, the most practical dreams I had could be making about 40 grand a year, right? And being able to pay all my bills on time, and even then it felt unrealistic. So when my sponsor came back to me and said, well, you'll live a life beyond your wildest dreams, my immediate first thought was like, well, if my dream was 100 grand, maybe I could go for about 100, right? If my dream was to have a nice, safe apartment, maybe beyond my wildest dreams was to rent a house, right? Or to own a house. These were the things that I couldn't even fathom as beyond my wildest dreams. And truth be told, whenever I got all those wildest dreams things in place, something still felt empty. And the thing about kind of looking for these things to make us happy, or these future expectations, is that expectations often lead us to a place where even if we achieve them, we don't really feel the joy we thought we would have when we achieved them, right? I don't know if anyone's ever experienced that in life. You think you're gonna get the perfect boyfriend, right? You get a boyfriend and then they have a bad day. Achievement not met. And so there's the thing about expectations. In recovery, we often hear this phrase, and it's called expectations are premeditated resentments. Anyone ever heard that one before? And there's actually some psychology behind that. So when we set an expectation, we create a baseline in our head for the way things are gonna be, right? And then, this is the one thing I learned from Marketing 3000 at University of Missouri. One thing I remembered, so I spent what? $3,500 to remember this. And it's, if you call a tomato stand best tomatoes ever, you best serve the best tomatoes ever. And even if you do serve the best tomatoes ever, people are going to expect said best tomatoes ever. Now, I don't know who would buy a tomato from a tomato stand that says rotten tomatoes on it. But if you did, and it was average, you're going to be pretty impressed, right? When someone tells you a movie is terrible and it's kind of fun, like, what was that? Red, White, and Royal Blue. Anyone seen that? I was so prepared for it to be bad. Well, Matt, everyone knows you're a hopeless romantic. So everyone told me it was awful. So whenever I watched it and it was kind of average, I was kind of impressed. Expectations create a baseline in our head. And so the more and more and more we focus on these expectations, the more and more we fixate or obsess over these expectations, the more we're creating a world in which we are bound for disappointment, right? When we think we're going to get that old job back, when we think that we're going to get the perfect boyfriend, all we're really doing is setting ourselves up for future failure. We expect things like people or timelines or maybe even where we're going to be at different recovery milestones. Anyone heard of the 1-year slump or the 5-year slump? Those are the only two I've made it through. So some of us with a little more sobriety in the room might be able to tell me about a 15 or 20-year slump. But I feel like the 1-year slump for me came because at a year, I looked at my life and it wasn't where I thought it was going to be, right? And it's because I'd set up those expectations for where my sobriety was going to be. And then with these expectations, when they're not met, we actually spiral. And there's actually something chemical going on in our head there. And it has to do with dopamine, right? So when we set an expectation, we get the immediate rush of dopamine from feeling like we've already achieved this expectation. And then when we don't hit it, we crash on dopamine. And then our body spirals in the fact that we don't get this expectation. But what if the solution to all of this was holding expectations a little looser? And what I'm arguing for is not to hope, not to make plans, right? We still, if I want to go to college and I want to get a degree to someday be a social worker, right? It's good to still plan for things, but maybe if you don't get a job at a social worker in a hospital, instead you get a job as a social worker in a treatment center or in a nursing home. When you reset those expectations, you're able to actually appreciate life as it is, not how you want life to be. So what if the problem isn't that these things in life are actually happening? What if the problem is the version of life that we're clinging on to? And across faith traditions, there's actually quite a bit of wisdom in this category. Buddhism actually says that suffering comes from attachment, from clinging on to things, whether it be the things we have or the things we expect to have. Recovery calls this concept surrender. And Scripture, there is this pattern that happens over and over and over again. When people in Scripture expect one thing to happen, often something totally different happens in the sacred texts. Let's take Zechariah and Elizabeth, for example. Anyone grow up in church and know who Zechariah and Elizabeth are? Yep, we've got a few people in the room. So Elizabeth, we see her in the story of Christmas, right? Where Mary goes to Elizabeth. And so Zechariah and Elizabeth, by all accounts, were very good people, right? Zechariah and Elizabeth were very good people. They did everything that they were supposed to. Zechariah was a respected elder in the temple. He was a priest. Elizabeth was from a good family. They loved and were devoted to each other. But in the Roman Empire, especially in Jewish culture in the Roman Empire, if you didn't have a kid, it was seen as God not blessing you. And so some of this, like fertility struggles we see today, it's very deeply rooted in a society that sees babies as blessings. But in their time, it was a little bit more than just they wanted to have a kid. Babies were basically your retirement account for future prosperity. Babies were signs that God favored you. Babies were ways to continue your line and legacy. And Elizabeth and Zechariah just consistently didn't have kids. And they'd gotten to a point, post-menopause, I think the numbers they give are a little bit skewed in the Bible because they didn't have the same things. But we expect Elizabeth and Zechariah to be in their 60s or 70s. And they'd given up all hope of having this baby, this thing that would carry them through. And one day, Zechariah is at the temple doing his duties, doing his job in the temple, and no one else was in the room because it was a sacred time, and an angel comes to him and says, "You're going to have a baby," right? And so he doubts the angel. He goes, "There's a whole offshoot." But that baby ended up being someone named John the Baptist. John the Baptist is kind of a big deal in the Bible. John the Baptist is the person who paved the way for Jesus, and John the Baptist was an absolute weirdo. Yes. He lived in the woods. He ate honey. He wore camel hair robes, I think it was. John the Baptist was an absolutely necessary weirdo in the scriptural narrative. And maybe, just maybe, if Elizabeth and Zechariah had had a baby according to plan, they wouldn't be able to appreciate how much of a necessary weirdo John the Baptist was. This happens again and again and again, not only in our own lives, but in Scripture. And that's one of the beautiful things about sacred texts, is they reflect our own personal experience. There's another character. Anyone ever seen the musical Joseph and his Technicolor coat of many colors? I'm reading the room and figured that was better than anyone read Genesis, right? A little bit of a safer bet. So Joseph was this kid, and he was his parents' favorite, right? Joseph was his parents' favorite. And his dad loved him so much, he gave him this long coat with all these colors. And there's actually a queer reading of this story that says Joseph just may have been trans, and that's why they hated him. Because the Technicolor coat of many colors was a garment that was typically worn by women. But Joseph had this vision, and Joseph had this dream. And this dream was that he was going to be a really big deal. Well, like any kid that's told that they're going to be a really big deal, Joseph became a little shit, right? And so he started going around telling his brothers that he was going to be a really big deal. And so his brothers, resentful that Joseph was favored by his father and going to be a really big deal, actually devised this plan to get rid of Joseph, and they were going to murder him. They threw him in a pit, and then one of his brothers ends up saving him and selling him off into slavery, taking his coat, ripping it up, and telling his dad he got destroyed by wolves. So Joseph goes to Egypt, where he's sold into this guy named Potiphar's house, which you probably know this if you've seen the musical, right? Again, Joseph starts to learn a little humility, right? Something he didn't have before. And eventually he works up into Potiphar's house, but then Potiphar's wife tries to sleep with him. When he says no, she accuses him of the crime, and he gets thrown in jail, right? Does this sound like the life that Joseph probably thought he was going to have? Probably not. But then, in jail, he actually starts seeing these visions and interpreting visions for other people. And so a few years pass, and the Pharaoh's having these visions about starving cows and all of these things. And so someone that was in jail with Joseph calls him to interpret the Pharaoh's visions, right? And then, whenever famine comes, they're prepared, and he becomes this big administrator for Pharaoh. But then that famine also hits his family. And so when his family comes to Egypt to see if they can find shelter and resources, Joseph is able to support and help his family. There's a story about reconciliation there and amends that we can talk about another time. But if it wasn't for that journey, Joseph would have never been where he needed to be. And that's the thing about expectations. If Elizabeth and Zechariah had been clinging on to the version of themselves that they thought they needed to be with their young kid, they couldn't have embraced the child later in life, and a weirdo child in itself. If Joseph kept clinging on to the vision of being a big deal in his own father's household, he wouldn't have been present in the moment that he was needed in order to save his whole family. A few generations later, shit went a little off rails, and they ended up having to escape slavery. But Joseph was able to be there and be present in a way that if all of those things wouldn't have happened, he wouldn't have been there. In the process, he learned things like humility and wisdom and ways to support and care for each other. So there's this big pattern, right? People expect things. They expect a clear path. They expect an easy path, and it never is. And anyone in this room could probably agree with that. So in the next few weeks, we're going to be talking about things that don't necessarily pan out the ways that we expected. Next week, we're going to talk about a king that comes on a donkey instead of a war horse. And after that, we're going to talk about a dude everyone thought was dead but came back from life. But today, we're going to talk about how if we don't let things go, we might miss what's actually happening all around us. When we let go of expectations, we're able to embrace life as it actually is and not life as we hope it would be. Because life never turns out how we hope it would be. Nothing ever turns out how we hope it would be, and that's good. For me, in my wildest dreams story, right, where I just wanted to make more money and have more things, I didn't realize that our wildest dreams aren't linear. Sometimes our wildest dreams happens outside. Because when we expect things, we're making wishes and promises for our future self that we might not be able to deliver on. And maybe our future self doesn't even want that. Whenever I got the money and the house and all of those things, I realized that that was empty. So how do we let go of expectations? Luckily for many of us in the room, we have a really good prayer for that. Anyone do the third step prayer in the morning? Anytime we practice the third step, or if we're some of the people in the room that aren't 12-steppers, there's still a really good principle behind it. When we practice release, when we ask God to take over our will and our lives, we're asking that God actually take over and show us the path, because we don't have the current resources or the current perspective or maybe even the current vision to know what's best for us in our lives. When we remain present, that's the next best way after surrender. When we remain present to what's actually going on. Because sometimes we can be so blinded of what we think needs to happen that we can't see the beautiful things that are actually happening around us. We could be so focused on getting that boyfriend that we don't even notice that we have a large group of friends that love and care for us. We could be so focused on that higher salary that we don't appreciate the lower stress work environment. We could be so focused on a life that we think that we need to have that we miss the life that God is giving to us the whole time, which is one of the hardest things to realize. And the final of the three things that we can do to let go of expectations is to hope and plan, but don't expect. When we focus on the process, we can actually go where we need to go instead of focusing on the outcomes. When we focus on the outcomes and they don't come through exactly as we expected, we leave disappointed and resentful. And that's why expectations can form into premeditated resentments, not only for others, but also for ourselves. You can never receive a life that you want if you're holding on too tight. Because when you hold on too tight, you might not let things go, but you're also not able to receive. So maybe the life beyond our wildest dreams is a life that we don't even know we want yet. So as we listen to this next song, as it comes on in the background, I want you to ask yourself a couple of simple questions. What expectations do we have that are slowly but surely turning into a resentment? As well as what things are we holding on to so tight that we might just need to let go of? Thanks. Storyteller, if you've been here at all, you've met her because she's here damn near every week. I'm really excited to welcome her up. She's one of those people that's just a light and joy, but also shows up with vulnerability and as her whole self. So right now I'd want to welcome up Aaliyah. Why, hello. How are you doing? How you doing?
I'm excited.
You're
I'm good. Good. Yes, thank you.
So first of all, just start off. Tell us a little bit about yourself, recovery journey. Get the basics out of the way, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, hi everyone. My name is Aaliyah. I was born on the west side of Chicago. I'm 31 years old, and I have a history, my family history of alcoholics and addicts. For all of my life. My mom has been an addict. My grandmother was an addict. She's actually sober, I think we're going on 40 years now. And my uncles and aunts are all alcoholics. And my brother is currently an alcoholic. My younger sister is an alcoholic. And we grew up around alcohol. At first, it was, so for 6 years of my life, it was my older brother. He's 3 years older than me, and then my younger brother. And so there's the three of us boys for 6 years, and then my little sister was born. So when I turned 8, that was the year that my mom would buy all of us wine coolers for the New Year's. And that was my first instance of drinking. I was 8 years old. And I just remember being really excited every year for the year to turn around for me to have a drink. And then my younger brother, he wouldn't finish his drinks, and then I would finish his. And then, so I guess, fast forward a little bit. I went to college, and I had joined a fraternity. Delta Tau Delta, and in fraternities, you drink a lot. So that was like really a big excuse to drink and like have fun. And that's when I also came out as transgender. So I stayed with the house, started drinking more. On my 18th birthday, I did my first line of coke, and that was like, I got really excited. I was happy because I liked the upper of it. And I didn't mess with it for a while until like my last year of college. I got back into cocaine, so I was doing that for a while. And then, so I ended up losing my job after I graduated school. I lost my job, and then I was back with my family, and I was really depressed. It was really such a dark time because like growing up as well, I was the smarter one. I'm the only one that went to college out of my siblings. And then they expected me to be famous and be an actor because I studied acting in college and high school, and I was the only one that was kind of doing the book smart stuff. So everyone looked up to me at one point to be the role model for all of my siblings, and I ended up. So my mom, she was a dealer as well, and I knew that she had some stuff, and it looked like cocaine to me, and because I only knew cocaine was like the powder form. I didn't know anything else came in that form. So I knew where she had her little stash, and I like snuck into it, and then I did my first bump of heroin, and I immediately puked. And I think a smarter person would say, hey, you obviously don't like this. You might want to not try it again. So I tried it again. And then I puked again. And I tried it one more time. And then it stuck. And the instance of doing that, I stayed awake. So I figured it was like some form of cocaine. Because I was so used to growing up, like seeing my mom like nodding and like thinking that was the effect of only heroin had, which it does. Eventually, I found out. But so I used kind of drugs to mask like a lot of the, since everyone looked up to me to be the one to do all these great things, and I kind of fell short when I left high school. I had jobs. When I lost those jobs, I moved back with my family. So I was really in a rut because I'm like, damn, like everyone's looking up to me, and I'm drinking and I'm drugging, and then I lose my job, and now I'm back with my family, and I'm like 23 years old. So I'm just like really down. So growing up, I used alcohol to kind of mask a lot of, I guess, those expectations that were set on me as like a little child to like, you're not supposed to cry. You're not supposed to do this. Like I was very flamboyant. I was very like, you could catch me standing on my hips, and I was like, I was sassy. I was very sassy.
No.
And I was always told, don't stand like that. You got too much sugar in your tank. Oh, that's a little faggot ass little kid. So I heard those things as a child. And it never registered with me, I guess, until when I drank, I was more free and I could do whatever I wanted to do without being judged because I was a drunk little 10-year-old, just having fun, I guess. So at 23, I started my heroin addiction. And instantly, though, I knew that I had an issue because since I wasn't working, I would stay up all night on the laptop and just like not do anything. But it got me out of my mindset. It got me out of, why'd you get fired? Why'd you quit your other job? Like, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? It gave me a space to not think about it because I was focused on how I was feeling, which was a very positive experience in my mind. Did transition. I was told that like no one's gonna love you. You're just gonna be a sex object, and for a while,
a lot of expectations placed on you, right?
Yeah.
And drugs provided a release from that.
It did, because I didn't have to think about those things. Like, okay, well, shit, like I might just be a sexual object, but I let those words resonate with me and kind
other
of
people's expectations.
Other people's
define
expectations,
you, right? Yeah.
and I kind of feel that with what they said. So I was okay with not being loved. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna be a piece of meat. So I was like sleeping around, doing all these crazy things. And then when I met my ex, he showed me that there was a such thing as love. And that he really took my heart because, like I said, I didn't think I was deserving of love. I didn't know that I could get love. Since I was little, I was told not to be myself. And then now I'm myself. And then I was told, hey, if you do that, you're going to be just a piece of meat. And then I was a piece of meat. But then finding out that I was deserving of love, it changed me in terms of like loving myself a little bit more. But I still had a lot of unanswered mental stuff that I didn't work on, where I continued to use drugs. And then so there were points where I had to leave. I wanted to go back home to my mom because I wanted to get more drugs. And then my partner, he was like, okay, well, he hated that I had to leave or that he had to drive me home. So I guess he got a little curious with the reason of me wanting to go home. So he decided to use too. And that is something that like I still deal with because part of me feels like I opened that door for that drug for him to use, even though he's an adult. But I still felt it really heavy. They're like, damn, like if I didn't want to go home so much, or if I would have just stopped before I met him, it would have been okay. And so we both got into the addiction of that. And
then y'all tried to get sober together,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We tried to get sober. We were successful once. We both went to Haymarket, and we were there for, I want to say 5 months. We were both in the sober homes. And then he told me, he's like, hey, like my dad's gonna give me this job, so we can find a place to go. And I was like, okay, cool. And
the classic failed expectation,
yeah.
Right? Don't leave the sober home early for the opportunity.
Yeah.
And where did that end?
Yes. And the day we left, I think a day later, we ended up using. And the problem that we had was I was with this person for most of my 20s. So like you said, 20 years, like in your 20s, that's an important time of your life. But this was all I knew was this guy and then these drugs. And so I never really found out who I was outside of the drugs. Even when I was working to find out who I was with identifying with more of my heart, I still never figured out who I was until recently. But so we went to rehab. We failed. And then so we tried again, and we didn't stay. And there was one successful time that we had was for 8 days where my ex's mom took us in, and she like was taking care of us. We were going through detoxes. She was like rubbing his back, getting us drinks and food, like, and she let us sleep in her bed. So it was like really nice. And that was the only time we were like successful, other than this time around, where we didn't go to rehab, but we started to drink. And then we're like, hey, let's go get a little bit. It's always that one more that we wanted to do, because we were 8 days clean and we didn't have to go to rehab.
Yeah, it's that cunning, baffling, and powerful, right? Like
Yeah.
our brains kind of convince us of these things.
Yeah.
And I think there's an expectation story there too, right? Like,
Yeah.
if I just drink instead of use, it'll be good.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So what was different this most recent time that kind of worked out then?
Well, so this time it was very different. Because this last stint in rehab, we both went again, and they were telling me, because they know how I was, we're very codependent, me and my ex. So like when he would leave, I would be running right after him. And it happened this time, but I went back. So he left, and they were saying, Aaliyah, don't leave. I'm like, I'm not gonna leave. And it was like 3 days later, and I got really concerned because we were homeless before going in there. So I was like, I don't know where he's gonna be. Like, I'm nervous. I wanna like know if he's okay. I can't call him. He doesn't have a phone. So like I left, and then I used, but I came back we both came back 4 days later. So I was able to bring him back, and then he left again. And then I had the conversation with him when I left the first time that like, I'm gonna have to figure out how to do this. Like, we're gonna go back and we're gonna do this together, or like if you leave, I can't leave this time. Like, I have to think about me more, put myself first. And that was the hardest thing that I had ever done in terms of our relationship, was not be concerned for his well-being, only concerned for mine. So yeah, I mean, I just had to say, do you want to live? Do you want to be the person that you always were, always wanted to be? Do you want to be that beautiful person inside and out that you've always dreamed of as a child? Or do you want to just continue to be in bandos and
So it was
basements?
probably kind of hard releasing that then, huh? Someone you care for deeply and been through all that stuff with, but you had to prioritize and put your sobriety first, right?
Yeah, I did. Because a year before, 2 years before, he lost his mom. And his mom was the only supporter of like our relationship. And he didn't talk to his dad or that side of the family really. Excuse me. So once his mom died, it was like, shit, like I'm all he has. And I had a fear of leaving him because I didn't want his mental state to get worse. Because we were so attached to, and I was the stronger one in terms of kind of holding us down and like taking care of him. I would make our appointments and things like that. The backbone. And so I feel like if I left when he has no one, it's gonna be bad.
And then, so that's an expectation, right? If I leave or if I separate. So in the process of you kind of putting your recovery first and working on your own self, what ended up happening, right? Like compared to what you'd expected so many times, right?
Yeah, I mean,
because this turned into a loved ones of addict story, which is great, right? Because when you love someone so much, right?
Yeah.
And you think you can get sober for them, or you can want it for them, right? but then you finally prioritize yourself, right?
Yeah.
What happened to them, right? What happened to him?
Yeah, I mean, well, okay, well, I should say she. I do say he because we were together when she was a boy, and that's most of our relationship. But she's now in Haymarket. She's in rehab.
Okay.
She's in sober living as well, and we still talk.
Yeah.
And she's doing her thing, and I'm very happy for her. Yeah. But it's like, there's so much of me that I still have trapped down inside, and that I need to take care of, that I'm still holding back with a lot of fears and those expectations of like having those resentments to myself of not succeeding how my family saw me succeeding or how I wanted to succeed.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is when you finally let them go on their own recovery journey and you went on your own recovery journey, they were actually able to go on a recovery journey,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
when y'all were kind of trying to do it together, sometimes, when two people are in and out, in and out, in and out, it only takes one bad idea amongst the two of you, right?
Right. And we were each other's like downfall in the end. We loved each other. But we weren't going to be able to get to the next stage if we continued to do the things we do, or if I would have left again after they left the second time instead of stayed and give them that strength to like, okay, maybe I should go back too. So
we have about 1 or 2 minutes left. So just a final question is, for anyone that's like trying to get sober themselves and also trying to get someone else sober, right? Or trying to go through that journey together in that like early sobriety stages, what's something you learned so far that you wish someone would have told you and you didn't have to learn it the hard way?
I mean, it is really, really challenging to put yourself first. It sucks because when you put so much energy and so much love into someone, and if there's no there was obviously no way we were going to get it right together in that space. It's okay to take that space apart and look out for yourself to make sure that you're okay. Because the old
face mask in the airplane analogy, right?
Exactly. So I couldn't go and then try to run back and grab them. You know what I mean? I kind of just had to go, and then they go on their journey too, and then we both grow. But just let yourself be you, and put yourself first and what you really want and need in order to have a healthier, better life.
What do they say? This is a selfish program?
Yeah, it is. It is. You gotta be a little selfish.
You gotta be selfish, especially whenever it covers your recovery. Well, thank you so much, Aaliyah. Thank you, babe. You did great. Awesome. Thank you very much, Aaliyah. And thank you, everyone. This community stays open because of generosity from people both in the room and out of the room, or people who are out of the room and then come into the room later. So we stay open because of the generosity of our community. And so as we work to build towards a recovery hub in the city of Chicago, your generosity helps us get in that direction. So you can scan this QR code or go to freerecoverychicago.org and set up giving to help us get to where we need to be, as well as the practice of generosity transforms our soul. So next, we'll go, and there's a cash box over there with a QR code on it if you missed the QR code. Next, as we mentioned at the opening, we close out every night with heartaches. So those heartaches are those things that are just a little too heavy to carry out of the room. There's always a pause between heartaches as we kind of sink in and pray for the person that comes next. So I invite you, as there's breaks in time, to just kind of meditate and pray for the person who shared the previous heartache. So Matt will walk around with the microphone, so just raise your hand. If you're joining us online, just tell your case aide, and we will get your heartache shared in the room.
I just want to pray for my sister. She woke up to her boyfriend who had a heart attack. So basically she woke up to him dead, and she just got a job for 2 years of searching, and I just want to pray for her. I know she has this, so just prayers to her. That's all.
Thank you.
Hey, so I would just like prayers for my mom. Like I said, she's still suffering an addiction. And I always talk to her. I'm like, Mom, like, come on, you gotta get this. You know, you're getting too old, and she knows it. But like, just prayers. Hopefully, she gets it, so we can do this together.
Hi, I'm Marie. I'm Ed's mom, and I was raised with a cousin my age. We were best friends until her mother moved them to Chicago, and I cried at night because I missed her so much. And I visited her today at the Sisters of the Little Poor nursing home, where she has lived for 17 years, unable to speak, move, but she still can think. She actually still wants to put a little makeup on, and they help her. They do it for her. She cannot move a bit of her body. And her daughters have been unbelievably supportive of her. 17 years in this home, but she was ill even before that. It's so unfair. And I don't know how she even sustains it, but they take her to church. They go to, it's a Catholic facility. She goes to Mass every day, and she has faith. And it's incredibly painful to see it, but I'm glad I was able to make the visit to see Ed and visit with her.
Absolutely.
Pray for Nancy. Her name is Nancy.
Absolutely.
I actually lost my aunt this week. It's kind of suddenly. So my mom, I'm just hoping she's okay. But yeah, may her memory be a blessing.
My heart aches for an individual who is out there still caught in the grips of their addiction. My heart aches for those who don't know that there's a way out, and even more so for those that know that there are a way out but refuse to come in from the storm.
Well, thank you everyone who shared tonight. Thank you everyone for being here and showing up vulnerable with your heartaches, your celebrations, and your open mind to explore spirituality through the lens of recovery. We're here every Saturday night, so definitely invite your friends, come back, and if you have any questions, make sure to ask me. Every week we close with a different prayer. Talk the third step prayer this week. We'll close with the third step prayer, and I know offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will, always. Oh, take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May do the will always. If you have a sponsor like me, they make you rewrite it, so we all go on our own little versions, and sometimes it's hard to read. So thank you all. We'll see you next week.